This is the young professor Matt Graifer, and you're watching the new Legends on Deck podcast with your hosts, Brian Koss and David Condi.
Gentlemen, boys and girls, and potassium enthusiasts from around the world, this is the moment you have all been waiting for. We, over 4,000 Screaming Banana Maniacs, come from far and wide, from Shanghai, China, to North Carolina, from Spain to Fort Wayne. They come from all across the globe to see this. This is a game played by the world's most entertaining players. This is a non-stop thrill ride, the likes of which has never been seen. This is the showcase of the immortals, played by beings who are half man and half God. This is not baseball. This is not your granddad's pastime. This is the time for all 4,000 plus Banana Maniacs here in Banana Land to get on your feet and give me your voices, because this is the greatest show in sports. This is Banana Ball!
Leading off for your Bananas, coming in from the metal bleachers, the catcher number 1, Bill Leroy.
Welcome to episode 24 of the Legends on Deck podcast. I'm Brian Koss with our co-founder David Condi, and our special guest today is the young professor, Matt Graifer. Welcome, Matt.
What's up, guys? How are you doing today?
We're good, man.
Doing good. We're doing
Thank you for being on the show with us today. We love your background, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit.
Yep.
I don't know. My wife doesn't love this background, but I'm glad you guys do.
Yeah, it looks like it's got a story. So
it's got a few, I think.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you guys some background on Matt, and Matt is in sports and entertainment. He is based in Florida, just like we are. We are a Florida-based podcast, Florida-based website. Best known for his work with both the Savannah Bananas and the Daytona Tortugas. So he's works with both teams. He's currently writing a book to become a on how to become a professional live event host, and is across an 8-year career. He has hosted over 1,000 different events in front of more than 500,000 people. In 2022, he was named Best In-Game Host in Minor League Baseball, and by the Let's Get to the Show. And pleased to welcome Mr. Matt Graifer, the young professor.
Well, thank you for that esteemed entrance, and I know a thing or two.
You're the entrance guy. Yeah. I'm doing my best here.
I do want to correct you on one thing. You said Dayton, and I'm not a big Ohio guy. I'm
sorry,
Daytona.
Yes. The Daytona Tortugas. I apologize, because we actually had Justin Rock from the Tortugas on our show. I was a little confused with my affiliates there, but yes, Daytona makes more sense.
Well, interestingly, I mean, if you're talking Tortugas, once they wrap up with us in Daytona, they do go to Dayton. It's funny. Last year, I know, we got into the middle of the minor league baseball season, if you looked at the lineup, the roster for the starting lineup for the Dayton Dragons on any night, it looked like the Tortugas at the beginning of the season. So
that's true. That makes
some similarities.
There's some similarities. So they're high A ball. And the Tortugas are now low A ball.
That's right.
They switched spots.
Yes, as a matter of fact. And I heard you guys asking Justin if people were crying about it or asking any questions about it. And I mean, I came in after the switch, so I didn't hear too much of it. I remember a few people, but you're always going to get a few. I think most people are just happy to continue to have baseball in affiliated baseball in Daytona, because there's been affiliated ball there since 1920. So a lot of history, a lot of legacy at that ballpark.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're going to get into the first question here. And this is, the first thing when I see your logo behind you. So people are going to ask, you have your nickname, the Young Professor. What are the origins of that nickname, and why is that stuck with you?
Well, I wish it was a cooler story, but that's just what I was. I started, before I did anything in sports or in entertainment, I fell into teaching. Literally felt like I didn't go to school for that either. I fell into it, and I became a college professor. Gosh, this month will be 11 years ago, and wow. I was 25 years old. I was going to turn 26 the next week, but I was a 25-year-old college professor. I looked like a freaking baby. I remember I didn't have an office printer. I was my first day at the job. I started printing out some stuff for my class that night, and it was going to the library. And if you've ever been around any librarians, they take their job and their equipment and their supplies remarkably seriously. And here comes this young punk who's printing on this faculty computer. And this lady starts laying into me about this being faculty only. And I let her finish. I just let her, she needed to get that out. And I just stuck my hand out. I said, "It's nice to meet you. My name is Matt Graifer. I'm your new sports medicine and fitness technology instructor." And she about fell over. So I was a young professor. And a few years later, I actually wound up being displaced from that professor position. They got rid of the program I was teaching in at the Daytona Beach campus for the college I worked for. And I started hosting live trivia on the side, because I started another job and that job wasn't fun or well paying. And so I started in entertainment because that's something I had always kind of wanted to do. And I was just Matt, a trivia guy, for a while, which is very boring and forgettable, because Matt is a very biblical, ordinary name. And people would be like, "See you, Mark. Bye, Mike." And it's like, man, that's not working. And so I was thinking of just a gimmick or a nickname, especially being a longtime pro wrestling fan. I know people like nicknames and gimmicks, and I just went with something that described what I had been and what I was again at that time, which was a young professor. So that was a name I built some steam with. And as I've continued to trek along, it just still kind of fits and works for me. And so while I am neither young nor a professor at this point, I am still the young professor.
I think it fits perfectly. I think that's an awesome nickname. The logo is great. I think it looks just like you.
That's what we're going for. That's
Can you tell us a little bit of what you do as a live event host?
Yeah, so like I said, I started in trivia, which is you guys are both Orlando based, yeah?
He's Orlando, Southwest Florida.
Okay. Well, I know for a fact that in both of those areas, you can go out on any given night of the week. And if you're looking for something to do and not getting, too much trouble, there are typically like live trivia games played in lots of different bars and restaurants. And that's what I started doing. And that was my first real venture into live event hosting. And from there, people had heard me on a microphone enough, and they asked me repeatedly, "Do you work in sports? Do you do any voiceover work?" I would get this question at least once per week, and the more I did it, the more I would get it. And finally I said, well, I should probably do something about this. If enough people tell you something, there's probably something there. And so about 5 years ago, actually, this past month, I started as a professional wrestling ring announcer. It was my first foray into sports. And from there, I was able to take some footage and wind up being a host for the arena football team up in Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Sharks. I did that for 2 years, and that brought me to the Daytona Tortugas and eventually the Savannah Bananas and many, many other events and people along the way.
That's awesome. I did see the NASCAR one. That was awesome. At one point, you disappear in the smoke, but I can still get the vibe.
I just wish I had good footage of that. It was such a weird experience because I mean, it's literally the biggest thing I've ever done. Most incredible. I mean, I'm working with the top athletes in their sport while they're in the sport. And we got rained out the night before. There was sold out. We were going to have over 100,000 people out there, and it got rained out. And now it was 9:30 in the morning. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't sound that great at 9:30 in the morning. So here I am trying to do these huge intros for these guys. The infield is still wet, so there's no cameras in front. So I got some mediocre footage for an unbelievable experience. But yeah, that was a wild thing too.
Awesome. That's great. I'm gonna turn the clock back a little for you. You're currently involved with Daytona, the Tortugas affiliate team there, and the Bananas. Tell us a little bit how you started with those teams, particularly. Obviously, you're living in Daytona Beach area, and the Tortugas are the local team. But we've like I mentioned before, we've covered both teams on our podcast and on our website. We've done a number of things with the Bananas as well. So we'd like to hear kind of the backstory, how you hooked up with both teams.
Yeah, for sure. So I met the now general manager for the Daytona Tortugas, Mr. Jim Jaworski. I met Jim shortly after I moved to Florida back in 2010. I went to one young professionals networking meeting because I knew nobody when I moved here. But I met Jim. Jim was wearing all Cubs gear at the time, and I had just moved from Southern Illinois. I was in Cardinals country, but I took more of a liking to the Cubs than the Cardinals while I was up there for those 2 years. So I said, oh, here's a guy I can talk to because, I just moved from here. I just went to Wrigley Field not too long before. So I'll strike up a conversation with him. And Jim at the time was just a young up and coming professional in baseball. He was working for the then Daytona Cubs, and he was in like their ticket sales, group sales. So he was low man. I was low man in an event management company, and Jim and I kept up over the years. And as Jim kind of climbed his way up the ladder and I started doing some of my things, we would interact here and there, especially as a professor in the Daytona Beach area in sports and exercise. Whenever the Tortugas or the Cubs would do something, I would bring my students over, and Jim would arrange for my students to meet with their athletic trainers and kind of talk to them about career options. So we stayed in touch. And then as I started more in entertainment and started hosting, especially he saw my work with arena football, as we got to that 2020 season that we thought was going to happen, which I know you guys talked to Justin Rock about the fact that was when the Tortugas were on the chopping block. Jim had called me in the off season and said they had never hired an on-field host from outside the organization before, but this was going to be an important year where we were looking to kind of like do all that we could, to save the team and make sure that we continued to have affiliated baseball. So he offered me a position to be the on-field host. Biggest break of my career up until that point. And then the world ended in early March, and I wasn't sure I'd ever get it, but we made it. We survived. Jim kept up with me, and I started. So I did the 2021 and the 2022 seasons for the Daytona Tortugas. But just as I was getting ready to start in the 2021 season, that is when I learned about the Savannah Bananas. Now, I thought they were just another goofy minor league baseball team name, which I'm a huge fan of, by the way. You can't see them in here, but in this closet, I've got some Rocket City Trash Pandas hats. I've got, the Amarillo Sod Poodles. I got all the goofy stuff, right? That's absolutely in my wheelhouse. So I thought the Savannah Bananas were just another team. And then I found out they were not just another team. And I saw all the wacky, kooky, crazy things. I saw the guy on stilts. I saw all the madness. And I started looking into what they did, and I realized that, oh my God, like as a guy that's going to be in charge of entertainment essentially for this stadium that I'm going to be working in, these are the guys that are doing it. It looks like they're the best. And as I did more research, I went, oh, they're absolutely the best at this, at what I'm doing. So let me find out more. I picked up Jesse's book. I reached out to Jesse on LinkedIn, started conversations with him, got a chance to come out to a game summer 2021. And Jesse actually let me perform with the team, do some cool like ring announcer intros. And then I begged and pleaded and sent a bunch of weird stuff their way to try and get on with the World Tour last year, and was successful. And so now I have been a host for both the Tortugas and the Bananas. So there's the stories connected all together.
Well, that's, first of all, it's really, really good story. But the interesting part, your story struck me when you're talking about you're reaching out to Bananas. So you apparently started the same time when I went down there, or went up there rather, to go check them out. So I start digging too. I start following this team on social media, and I was like, what's going on with this team? Looks like something's interesting here. Yeah. So same experience, which shows, kind of Jesse Cole, how accessible the guy, for a guy that is so ambitious and successful in his own way. He was very accessible. I mean, he responded to my emails quickly, invited me down to the stadium, said, yeah, cover whatever you want, wherever you want. I was on the field doing, everything. He gave me a full interview before I went down there. Interesting. It's funny that, you reach out to the right people at the right time, and you can make those where you kind of see it from where they were then to where they are now. And for you, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it feels like I was able to get onto the rocket ship after it was lit and as the door was shutting. That's how it feels. And right. And I don't take that for granted, because it has been the opportunity of a lifetime. And next weekend I'm heading up to Savannah, where we're doing rehearsals, we're doing some video shoots for things in preparation for the tour. And we are less than 2 weeks away, man. We're going to be in West Palm Beach. We are sold out for 2 nights there. We're going to be in Daytona, then in Savannah. I'm already looking at our Montgomery and Texas trips next month. And dude, it's a wild ride for a guy that started, hosting bar trivia and then pro wrestling at the worst little podunk school ever to now be in the spot that I am in, and to do the things I do with the people I do it with is just, it's outrageous. It's like a fever dream.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I don't want to undersell the Tortugas either, because they actually have a very consistent following and a loyal fan base there. And I was really happy to see what they were able to do to save the team. They're consistently the highest, attendance and I would say the most loyal fan base probably in the Florida State League.
So. Oh, for sure. I mean, and look, you're not selling them short. As somebody that has worked there too, look, we know we're low A, we are small fish in a small pool, essentially, is how we feel. And we don't have tons of money. We don't have tons of marketing and advertising. We don't get all that attention. So our goal always was, how do we kind of go out and put on a show? And especially this past year, that was kind of something that was uniquely charged to me, because while I wasn't full-time staff, I wound up writing the script for every single night of our shows. I mean, every script the entire year, whether I was there or not, I wrote all the inning breaks and schedules. I made sure everything was where it needed to be. I was chopping music and video and sending it to our guys up in the broadcast booth, because especially based on things I'd learned from the Bananas, I knew that we need to thrill these people. We need people to come out and have a good time. We're competing for their attention and their dollar, and we're not competing against other sports teams. We're competing against the movies and Daytona Lagoon and these places that they can go instead. And we wanted people to know why we were an option. And it was difficult, the weather, the natural elements. And man, I will say, and I hope this doesn't get me any shade, but the team was terrible most of the time. The guys were not playing well. I mean, we had a few stretches where we did well, but I mean, dismal performances sometimes for weeks on end. And yet I would talk to Justin every night and I'd say, what are our attendance numbers and what are the others in the Florida State? Because I was interested in that.
Yeah, for sure.
We were blowing them away almost all of the time, especially on weeknights. Our Tuesday nights, some of the ballparks don't even have fans in on Tuesday nights. They play in front of no one, which I don't know what the business decision is behind that. I know that there is one, but we were getting over 1,000 fans, sometimes up to like 1,200, 1,300 on a Tuesday night. on a Wednesday for Belly Buster Wednesday, and we just flooded people with tons of entertainment. And I don't want to take all of that credit because we had a great crew, but I am convinced that the experience that we started giving people, especially this past year, made it so that they wanted to come out to that ballpark every night, win, lose, or draw, because they knew they were going to have a good time. They were going to be in an enjoyable atmosphere under a beautiful sky with great scenery. And, you know, even if the team isn't great, we're just going to have a blast. And so that was our big thing that we really committed to in 2022.
And for everybody out there that, you know, for those of us, we followed the Florida State League quite a bit at Legends on Deck. It's something we've done for a long time. But currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the Tortugas are the only team in the league that do not have a spring training location, or maybe I'm wrong on that, but that have a team that practices like affiliate. The Reds are not spring training in Daytona.
No, they're in Arizona. They're
you don't have that.
They're in the Cactus League.
Right. You don't have that build up the way that, you know, that you got the spring coming in, the spring team coming in, and the build up to the season the way that a lot of the other teams have that advantage.
Do you know what we have that none of those other teams have? That's history. And I know, like, you know, anyone else can say that, but we are the oldest active minor league ballpark in all of affiliated ball. Cool. Rick Whitfield is an older ballpark, but it's not active, right? There's only a few games there, professional or otherwise, per year. So our ballpark was built in 1914, and we've had affiliated ball since 1920 on the grounds there on City Island is what it used to be called, renamed to Jackie Robinson Ballpark in 89 or 90. And not to mention, is it just old? Because that's not enough of a selling point, especially these days. Yeah. But the importance of what happened there, and a lot of people don't realize it, because that ballpark is named Jackie Robinson Ballpark. And it's not just named after Jackie because you name it after an important ball player. What many people don't realize is that in the mid-1940s, when the Dodgers wanted to make the move and have Jackie Robinson play ball with white players, which was a huge deal at the time because no one had ever done this before, and not just in baseball, but in all sports, they brought him out for spring training. But before they put him on the Dodgers, because I think he broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball at 47, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Okay.
I think you're right. So yeah.
In 46, so the year before, he was on the AAA team for them, which were the Montreal Royals. Yeah. Montreal had their spring training in Florida, and it was in Sanford actually at the time.
That's right.
Sanford said, no, we are not having black players here. That is not going to happen. They shut their doors. They chained the fences, said, we're not doing it here. Jacksonville said no as well. But Daytona Beach, which at the time, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, who was one of the founders of Bethune-Cookman University, but she also served in President FDR's cabinet, especially in relations with African Americans. She lived there. She had a ton of influence. She said, come play ball here. So on St. Patrick's Day in 1946, John Wright, who was a pitcher, and Jackie Robinson were the first two black ball players to ever play integrated ball with other players. And that is where all of sports, the color barrier was broken, was right there in that ballpark at that time. Home plate is right where it always has been that entire time. And so that is something that I think our community knows, or at least has an idea of, and people gravitate towards. There's no substitute for that level of importance, not just in civil rights or civil rights history, but in human history, in sports history. And to have that kind of story happen right there in our own backyard, I think that's what people gravitate towards, and why people just want to come out to that ballpark year after year for well over 100 years at this point.
Yeah.
That may be somewhere where Legends on Deck has to go hang out for a few days.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go. We're it's long.
It ain't far. You guys can make the trip.
No, we can. We will.
I can't complain when I make a trip to Port St. Lucie to go visit my Mets, and it's 3 hours. So Daytona is just another hop, skip, and a jump.
That's right.
Yeah, I grew up a Mets fan, so I've been to Port St. Lucie quite a few times.
So let me ask you a question on that a little bit. How far do you go back as a Met fan? What's the earliest year you remember?
I mean, I'm born in 1986, so there's a
Okay.
picture of me. I'm what, 9, 6, 7, 8 months old in the World Series, but there's a picture of my dad holding me and sitting me on the coffee table. I'm sitting up, got a little Mets hat on, and it's Game 6 of the World, because like we had already gone to bed and they had already but my grandfather, my mom's dad, who we had a house that we had an apartment downstairs. They had an apartment upstairs, my grandparents. But my grandfather had a basement, and all of a sudden they heard him start losing his mind out of nowhere. And so everybody woke up and ran back to the TVs, and they plopped me on the table. While that's not really a memory of mine, it shows you where the influence kind of started. My parents weren't really big baseball fans, but as I got older, I was a baseball fan. I think it was a way that I wanted to kind of connect with my grandfather. And so I started kind of following them, but I didn't really start following baseball at all until I got to college. So I actually went to opening day at Shea Stadium 4 years in a row in 2005, 6, 7, 8. So I'm a huge fan of the David Wright, Jose Reyes era. That's when I really got into it. And even though I was older, God, I loved it. And I have so many great memories of going to games then.
Well, as your grandfather was screaming, I was actually crying in my bedroom because I thought they were going to lose. And when they won, I think the whole neighborhood heard all of us. So, yeah, I think all of New York was screaming at that point in Game 6.
All those documentaries about it, man, it is one of the wildest stories in all of sports history. That whole season, those guys, everybody hated those guys except for the people in New York. They loved the Mets, but like the Mets were scumbags that year. Like, people did not like them. But it makes for a wild, cool story.
Yeah, we won a World Series. I'm not complaining. I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. All I cared that they won on the field. So, we talk a lot with you, which is great, about, your involvement in different sports, NASCAR, baseball, you did MMA, wrestling, college basketball as well. So, what is your mindset and approach? I'm sorry. How does your mindset and approach change when you're kind of involved in different sports? So one night's baseball, maybe doing MMA. So how do you think about approaching that, and what do you do to get the crowd riled up?
I'll be honest with you. I look at all of it the same. It is all the same with slight little changes in verbiage or just nomenclature. That's really the way I look at it. And I teach by day, and I look at that the same way. I am put in the front of a room, and my job is to convey emotion and information, right? That's the same in the classroom as it is on a baseball diamond, as it is on a stage in front of a NASCAR audience, as it is in a cage surrounded by MMA fans. My job is to be the guy holding the conductor's baton and to generate reactions and give out vital information that gets people pumped for what they're going to see next. And so I really, I think once I figured that out, and I'm not sure when I figured that out, but when I figured that out, it has made my move and my transitions into things remarkably smooth, because I can show up to just about anything I feel and I'm ready to go. I just need some basic information. What am I doing? What do you need me to say? Who are our sponsors? What are some important things you want me to hit? And otherwise, it's just kind of getting people to go where we want them to go. And we want them to go to an exciting place. And that's something that I'm well equipped to handle.
Do you think in any way, or your opinion, what makes the baseball crowd unique based on all the other crowds you kind of deal with? Or are they?
I don't know that they are that unique. I really look at all of them the same. I'll be honest with you. And because a lot of the same things work for all of these audiences. But I will say, for baseball fans are patient, because they have to be, because baseball is a very methodical game and sometimes can be very slow moving. And, your hardcore diehard folks they're there, they're there for the meat and potatoes, because otherwise they wouldn't be there. I think that's also one of the problems that baseball is having, is because those people are not hard or not easy to come by at this point, because the fast-paced nature of just the culture and the world we live in right now, these kids coming up, they are not going to go sit at a 3-hour ball game and be invested and sitting with their scorecards and finding out who does what. They want nonstop action. And that's why a team like the Bananas is connecting so well, because the Bananas are TikTok in real life. Yeah. Everywhere you look, there's something nuts going on every 2 seconds. That really tailors itself to the attention span of Americans and really people worldwide right now. So for baseball fans, they're patient, but I've also found that if you push them to be excited and to give them more entertainment, they're very grateful to have it. So that's why I said I don't know that there's that many differences, because we tried it with the Tortugas this year. We'd have 17 to 18 promotions a night, and that was not how we ran it the year before. And people loved it. And these are your purists, and they want to have fun too. And if people are leaving their house, they're spending their dollars, they're coming out to something, they want to have a good time. So let's show them one.
Well, you hit on a great point. When I first moved to Florida many years ago and I started going to minor league games, I didn't go to minor league games in New York. So you go to a baseball game and you just watch the baseball game, like you said, right? You sit there and you just watch a game, or there might be some entertainment in the stadium, but it's not, you got to get up and go see it, and not have it in front of you. When you go to a minor league game, every inning, there's something going on. Like, it keeps you engaged in what's going on. Like, okay, now you're looking forward to the end of the inning.
Right.
And the kids want to sit in the seat because they might be on the field with the team and stuff. So that's kind of interesting point, is how to get in baseball. You're right. We're just sitting there, or, minor league baseball and banana baseball is just really like getting the kids back into the game. Maybe a different way to bring the kids back, to say, hey, this is great. They may not make a team that dances and has fiery bats or stilts,
right?
As they get older, but at least you guys are bringing them back to the stadium, which is important.
The heart of banana ball is still baseball. Yeah. You're still throwing the ball, catching the ball, hitting the ball, right? Those things are all still happening. And so, all the basic skills of what makes a good ball player are required to play banana ball. So if we can get kids invested to just the experience of what that is, yeah, maybe they're not going to be doing TikTok videos and on stilts and fire and backflips in center field. But if that gets them interested, then we're doing a service for all of baseball. And I think baseball needs it, because I don't know that you see kids quite as ready to jump all in on baseball like you did even when we were kids.
Yeah. And you're right. Like, my son, he tells me all the time, I say, hey, come sit down and watch a game with me. Nah, I'm okay. He'll play catch with me outside, and he's excited to go to his baseball game, but to go to the stadium, you see them, they take off, they're running on the side of the field, they're just having fun, and they just keep moving. I'm like, oh my God, but
that's kids, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Nowadays you can't keep them still. Do you feel that, your experience with banana, I mean, you've done everything else, but you feel like your experience with banana baseball, when you now do the Tortugas, anything else, do people say, hey, you're from Banana Land? You get that reaction from people?
Sometimes. It's very cool when it happens. But I'm starting to kind of get out there more. In fact, the wildest thing that happened to me at all this past year was there was the All-Star break for minor league ball, and I wasn't working with the Bananas like collegiate summer league team. So we actually went on vacation, my family and I, and we went all over the place. We went like through the Carolinas, through West Virginia, and Ohio and Pennsylvania, and we hit a bunch of different spots. And we went to a lot of different ball games and ballparks. I wanted to check out all these different cool little independent ball league teams. Yeah. But we also went to a Cleveland Guardians game. And because I'd never been there, we were going to be in Cleveland. We did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We stayed at one of the houses from A Christmas Story, and we we stayed at the Bumpus house, which was cool. Great. The hillbilly neighbors with all the dogs next door. That was us, for a night. But we went to a Cleveland Guardians game, and I was able to connect with their on-field host there, which was interesting and cool. But as I was talking to him, and this felt like the biggest flex in the whole world, right? Because I'm dressed more like this. I'm wearing a major league shirt that's one of these like button-down shirts, cool, like red shorts. I'm not in anything Bananas. I'm not in anything Tortugas, right? I'm talking to their host, who has a microphone in his hand, not the other way around. And this dude walks up to us. The two of us are talking, and he comes up. I figure he's coming to talk to the host, because I know what that's like. And he looks at me and he goes, weren't you with the Bananas in West Palm Beach this past? And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is starting to happen. Like, so Sometimes, I mean, in Daytona, they know me, but it's kind of interesting. It seems like wherever I go, somebody recognizes me from something. And it's weird, growing up a very normal, ordinary life with no special connections, nothing, to kind of go out and everybody kind of knows who you are is an interesting experience.
Once you go overseas with Bananas baseball, that's it. Once you get to go to the country, you're going to be worldwide known everywhere.
Well, the stuff that we're looking at this season is just bonkers, man. I can't even imagine, because it's already so big. And we're going bigger. So I don't know where it's going, but I'm excited to see, because it's going to be fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna segue right into, it kind of goes into my next question, which is related to Bananas and all that. So Jesse Cole, as a business person, as an entertainment person and all that. Well, first I'd like to say a lot of people lost it. He's a baseball guy. When I interviewed him, he grew up a Red Sox fan in the Northeast and played college baseball and all that. And kind of his philosophy on baseball and business seems to be, baseball, he thinks a lot of what you were saying, how do you hook kids in? How do you make it entertaining? How do you do all these types of things? It's not like he's some guy coming from the outside. I'm not a baseball guy. I just want to change the game and make it entertaining. And then from a business standpoint, the banana brand, right? The brand and all that that comes with it. I mean, it's slowly becoming an iconic thing. If you wear, you'll see. I'll walk down the street places and see people with banana t-shirts on. So give us a little bit of insight. I'll let you kind of share your thoughts, but how did Jesse become a big influence on your, I've read that about you, that he's a big influence on you, as a business person, as baseball, or, in the entertainment sports industry.
Well, it started that way. It started as, I was like, oh, here's this guy who's really entertaining. He's doing something cool, and I'm impressed by that, and I want to learn from him. And that was, that's usually that's enough. But as I started to learn more about him, the guy just fascinates me from every level, because he's a family man. He's, as far as I know, he's pretty self-built. He doesn't have the rosiest of upbringings. He doesn't talk about it a lot, but if you listen to enough of his interviews, you hear some of this stuff. And he has built this incredible thing that brings so much joy to so many people. And really, from a personal standpoint, he's living the life he wants to live by doing what he loves to do. And that, for me, is what probably connects the most, because that's where I want to go. We'll sit here and I do enough interviews and I talk to enough people, and we talk about all the crazy things I do. And look, I love all of them. But I want to do one thing, and I want to be a host for a living. I don't want to have to go and sit in a classroom all day and keep grinding and working day and night, most of the year. It's getting better, but I'm not there yet. And I think for most people, they don't understand what that path looks like, or how to get there, or if you can get there, if it's possible. But you look at a guy like Jesse Cole and you see that, yes, you can. And he has left out for so many people to discover so much education, so much information, so much good advice, and connections to other people who can help you get there, because he's used all of that. I read his book, as I said earlier in our interview. I read his book when I was getting ready to do my first season hosting for the Daytona Tortugas, and I was blown away by his journey, his path, and that just really resonated with me. And he does, I don't think he does any new episodes anymore, but he has a podcast that he did called oh gosh, I can't even remember the name of it, but I listen to it almost every day still, because he's got over 200 episodes, and he's interviewed most of the Business Done Differently, it's called. He's interviewed almost every millionaire self-help author and well-known speaker that there's ever been. Anybody you can think of, he's had them on the show. He's talked to them. He can call them friends. He's probably got their phone numbers in his cell phone. And these guys just drop so much knowledge and so much wisdom. when I exercise now, I don't even listen to music anymore. I throw on one of his interviews with these guys because I've got to build my body. I've got to build my mind. I've got to be, if I want to be great, I need to learn from great people. And Jesse is that guy. So seeing him do that and then getting to work with him and seeing just this force of nature that he is, because that's literally what it is. The guy, he can barely keep a thought together because he's already 10 thoughts ahead in his brain. It seems like he's so far ahead of even himself. It's just a wonderful thing to get to learn from him. And I truly think he is one of the best when it comes to it. So to be able to be under his influence, be directly under his learning tree, and even get to stand in for him. I think that was the biggest compliment that I have been given professionally amongst all of it. Was this past summer, I went up for a couple games during the collegiate season, and they said, "We want you here for these games." And no problem. I mean, absolutely, I will do that. And I did the first two, and Jesse goes to me, he goes, "Well, next Thursday when you're here, I'm not here that night. You're hosting the show. It's your show that night." And I went, "Oh, okay. That's what we're doing." And that means a lot to me that a guy who is this revered, who his shoulders support the weight of all of this. I know he'll put it on his team and he'll put it on his people. And yes, this all doesn't go without the people he has put around him. But it starts with him. That man's philosophy, his energy is the core that attracts everything else to it. So for him to have that kind of faith in me is the biggest compliment I think I've ever been paid in my entire life, personally or professionally. Like, hey, this thing I built, I'm going to hand it to you for the night. Like, I trust you.
So
go ahead, go out.
So you were the guy running around the stadium that night. You were the guy getting up in the stands and getting everybody going.
Yes, I did the banana baby, the whole nine.
Oh,
like
yeah.
All of it. Like, I mean,
good for you,
nobody
man.
gets to do that part. Yeah.
No, that is cool. I saw Jesse a few months ago at a conference here in Orlando. He keynoted a conference and he just had the whole room going. Like a lot of people, it was like me and my buddy that I was with, like we knew Jesse, we knew all about him. But almost everybody in that room had no idea who he was. And by the end of the, it's a performance. He's speaking, but it was a performance. He had everybody on their feet. He was doing, dance routines and every. And
the blindfolded up on the stage, and they're all dancing and by themselves, and people are hooting and hollering. Exactly. Yeah, yep,
yeah. I mean, we're talking at a corporate conference type thing.
People like to have fun, man. People want to have fun, and there's not enough of it.
Yeah, the people afterwards, I was watching. I talked to him for a couple minutes, and I saw him walking the expo. And he's just getting pulled. I mean, you couldn't get anywhere near him for a couple hours till the staff yanked him out of there, just because they want to. Well, who is this guy? We got to know who he is. And he was it was fun, a different environment to see him, but of course the witnessing it live, myself, early on before they went. And actually, the game I went to was July 4th, 2021, and just so happened to be a banana ball game. It was one of the first ones they did.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of the summer collegiate season, but it wasn't a summer collegiate game. It was a banana ball game. And I even talked to, going back to what we had talked about with, sort of the traditional mindset on baseball. I talked to a couple people there. I've been coming to Savannah games forever before the Bananas. When they were the Sand Gnats with the Mets, and he was like, I still like it. He's like, I'm a baseball purist, but I'm a season ticket holder to the Bananas because it's so much fun to go to. So you're capturing the baseball people, and then you're capturing people that aren't necessarily the baseball people. So
yeah, I mean, it's the hottest ticket in entertainment. I mean,
yeah,
there's Taylor Swift and there's the Savannah Bananas, and that's that sounds like it's a flex. I don't think it is. I think that's legit. I think that's where we're at with things.
It's funny because I coach baseball here, and I have the 13-year-olds, 14, 15. So when Brian brought it to attention and we interviewed Tyler Gillum on the show, we had him on here and stuff, and my son was like, you're doing something with the banana. I said, oh, you know about them? Yeah, they're all over TikTok. I mean, all the kids knew about it even over here. So when they found out, they're like, oh, wow, So we were actually looking at some, hopefully when they come down in April, there's some still tickets haven't been opened up yet. The kids want to go up and check it out. So that'd be something. I haven't experienced it. Brian got to experience it. So I know I got to experience it. I got to see what that's all about.
The games there in Tampa are going to be, you know who they're playing, right?
The MLB alumni.
I don't know who's on that squad.
Yeah.
But you can probably expect a who's who. And I don't know who's on there, but I have a feeling like already with the guys we have played with that have wanted to come out.
Yeah.
Brother, it is going to blow the doors off. I mean, you think we can't get any bigger or higher? I guarantee you're going to have some serious Major League Baseball names playing banana ball and dancing and doing some nonsense out there, and it's going to break the internet for sure.
I think there was a game last year. You had Johnny Bench. He was like,
dude, yeah, I got to introduce him as he walked out to coach first base, like right in the middle of it. And like that video that I posted on YouTube has like 95,000 views. And yeah, Johnny Bench was out there. Jake Peavy came with us to a couple games. Then he pitched for us at Rickwood Field. Jonathan Papelbon came out and pitched for us in a kilt, and he's running out onto the mound with his World Series trophy and pitching with it, and he's river dancing out there. It was bonkers.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to shift back to Jesse Cole. One little question is going to really lead into what I want to ask you. So everyone knows in the stadium, you see Jesse Cole. What is he wearing? Yellow hat, yellow shirt. Everything's yellow, correct? So right. he decided that stands out. How did you figure out what you wanted to wear? Is that something you picked out? I mean, I see a jacket, it's a cool jacket you wear. I saw some other jackets you wear from some other events. So do you pick out your own outfit? Is that something that you feel like it's something to help you stand out?
Jesse picked it, but it was from my own. It was from my own collection. It's funny. I'm in like a half a second of the first episode of Banana Land, as we did our kind of rehearsal weekend. I brought this cool like red tuxedo with like gold on it and dragons and stuff, and it's sharp. And Jesse was like, no. And I was like, dude, I asked you guys like 10 times before I got here what you want me to bring, and you gave me nothing. Like, so I just brought something I thought was flashy and cool. He's like, no, that's too party animals. And I showed him some more pictures. Like, I want you to bring this gold tuxedo. That's going to be the look. And so I took that, and then I added like the flashy sequin shirt underneath. I started doing flashier like banana bow ties and stuff. I got these spiked gold, like bedazzled shoes and stuff. So Jesse wants me in just that. I have tried to push back at him and be like, dude, like, I think the thing for me is a moving part. Like, let me change my outfits every night. He's like, no, I want you in the same thing every night. It's hard for me because you see when I'm sitting around, I've got options. I like to use them because my shtick everywhere else is no one knows what I'm going to show up in next. Like, even in a Tortugas season, I did 50 of the 60 games last year. I did not wear the same outfit twice in that season. Same thing the season before. You'll see it from season to season, but you will never see me. Like, I wear this one night, you won't see it again until next year. One and done. It's always different. It always keeps people, because people literally would come and say, we just came to see what you're wearing because we don't know what you're going to do. And it's crazy. Like, I want to see your closet. Well, they can tune in. Here it is. Like, here's part of it, because there's a lot more in the garage.
On Deck podcast to see his closet.
Is that
the reveal?
Baseball?
That's right.
Is that
this is the great Hambino.
Those Roosevelt's, right?
Yeah. This is the one Aaron Judge wore after he cranked that monster home run years ago that blew up the Roosevelt's brand.
Yeah. That's nice. They make some cool stuff.
You're looking at a lot of it. So
yeah. I see a number of them back there. For sure.
So we know that you're writing a book. You're working on a book, and give us a little bit of insight if you can. What can we expect? What can the readers expect with this book you're writing right now?
It's written to a kind of specific audience in a way, because it's really written for people that want to host live events. And I've got all the different kinds of live events that you can do in there. And just through our conversation, I've listed a lot of the different ones I've done. But what's interesting to note is there's no path to do this. There's no class, there's no certification, there's no coursework, there's nothing to do what I do. And yet there are thousands of people that do it all the time, but there's no books, there's no education, there's nothing to kind of make sure that someone knows what they're doing. And that's why too, when you go to any live event anywhere, the quality varies considerably in terms of who the host is. I mean, Brian, you were talking about being at a conference. I mean, how many conferences have you been to with some big muckety muck up there?
Most of them are very dry. Anything like that is usually very dry.
But you get a Jesse Cole out there,
then it's a whole different animal,
and it's a whole different, and it's still just as it's probably more educational. It's more, and why can't that be for
certainly
everywhere?
More memorable,
and
that's what you want.
That's exactly what you want for every live event. I mean, in the book I talk about, you just do the math of just, even if you just look at trivia shows alone nationwide, there are thousands of shows every week in the United States alone. That means there is a host, there is a me sitting behind a microphone somewhere. How do you train someone to do this? And, that was always, everything was very learn as you go for me. And I've been fortunate enough to get successful and get repetitions. And it's the repetitions that taught me more than anything. I also think that being a teacher taught me a lot that made me a successful host to begin with, just by teaching me how to work a room and how to, maintain that audience. But I'm sick of seeing crappy hosts. I'm sick of people going out to events and having a bad time. And so I think it's time that there was something out there. There was some kind of resource, some kind of literature that can help people at least figure out the nuts and bolts. Like, what kind of equipment do you need? What kind of personality do you need? What are some things that are going to go wrong that you need to plan for? And how can you do this well? How can you knock somebody's socks off every night? Because nobody's teaching you that. We're all also very competitive as hosts, so we're not trying to help each other. And I think that it's not a good thing. And so I decided that it was time to share my knowledge and pick the brains of others who are doing it well, or who are doing it better than me, and share that with the world, because I think it can do a lot of good, and we can make sure people are having fun everywhere from coast to coast, whether it's the young professor up in front of the room or anyone. Everybody that's going out to that event should be having a good time.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a good point too, about what you said, sharing stories with other people that are doing it, or interviewing other people that are doing it. That's kind of our philosophy too. Like, we bring people on because we want to talk to them. We want to connect with people, anybody associated in the baseball space. Whether it's, heck, maybe we'll have some guy that's a peanut vendor on at some point. So it's like anybody that's in that space that has an interesting story to tell, we want to hear it. And if you're going into Jesse's philosophy, right, interviewing all the business people, what are their secrets? You just learn so much more from other people and their experiences. And I think what you're doing to put it all together, first of all, be a helpful resource for people that want to do what you're doing. But also, if it's the only one out there, you should do pretty well theoretically, you should do pretty well with the sales on that too.
We'll see. I mean, they say that, it's not book sales that make most people, any money, but your book can help move you, then you're the guy that knows how to host better than all the hosts. So let's have him come host. And so it'll, selfishly, those are things I'm looking for, because, I'm very transparent. I want to host for a living, and I'm not there yet. And, when people think of host, they think of your Alex Trebek's, rest in peace. They think of Steve Harvey. They think of all these other guys, but there's thousands of other hosts, and you can start and you can move up, and there's all these different places you can go, and no one's talking about it. No one's teaching it. It's not in the Bureau of Labor Statistics on the government website. No, there's no information for it.
How many people are in the hosting industry? Yeah.
Because it's not there. It doesn't exist. Right. And I'm shocked that it doesn't exist. So, now that I'm talking about doing it, I just got to hurry and write this damn book so nobody beats me. I'm more than halfway done, but
get this thing done with me. We'll be happy to get it, review this thing on our website and get it and push it out there for you.
I appreciate it.
I think I want to read it, because I've always been shy talking in front of people. I feel like I lose my thought. I pass out. I'm not doing a live event, but like I did a baseball camp earlier today, and I had to talk in front of a lot of people, and I almost passed out because I just don't like doing it. I'm easier with this, but you may just capture the audience that can learn how to do that as well. They may not do live events, but they'll have the confidence to know that, hey, if he did it, and maybe I can do it as well, and capture an audience in whatever realm they're going to be in, even in the business world.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, working a baseball camp, I guarantee you had more kids and more people at your baseball camp today than some of the early events that I worked. There were nights where I was in a suit, in a tuxedo, standing in a wrestling ring, and there were 5 people standing in front of me. And you know what? This is Madison Square Garden. We got a show to run, folks. And that's just how you treat it. And nobody teaches you to do that. Some guys, I've seen it. Some guys will be like, oh, there's nobody here, so I can do a lazy job. And all, like, no, the 5 people that paid their money, you want them to come back and tell their friends next week? Well, then let's kick some ass. Let's have a good show, and let's show them why they should tell people and why they should keep spending this money.
Right.
So I think you're right that for anyone that's running any kind of event, there is stuff in there. I get into specializations of like, all right, if you're going to do this kind of event, do this. But there's also all the what makes a good host stuff early in the book. That's the stuff that can resonate with anyone. If you're running a conference, if you're running a workshop, if you're running anything, if you read that and you take just some of that advice, your event will be better if you don't already have those things figured out.
Right. What are your plans for the 2023 baseball season? And then on top of that, what are your long-term goals? Like, what would you like to, and you touched on it right now. You want to be an event host as your career. Is there anything this year you want to focus on that's going to add to that goal or kind of work towards that goal?
I would love for this to be the year where that happens. I don't know that it will be, but it won't be for lack of trying. I want it to happen sooner than later. I'm getting a little impatient, which I shouldn't, because I've been very fortunate to have the kind of growth I've had in the short amount of time I've been doing it. I've been remarkably blessed, and I thank God every day. But this year, I feel like, is an important year for me. 2022 was the greatest year of my life, professionally, personally, you name it. 2023 has a lot to live up to. And with the stuff with the bananas in particular, I'm really hoping that that's going to cement my ability to do the things I want to do. As far as anything else in baseball, I'm not sure. I'm a big believer that the road will take you in interesting places. 2 years ago, would not have predicted any of this. 2 years before that, would not have predicted any of the things that happen in the next 2 years. So the road is interesting. I'm a big believer in working hard and knocking on doors and keeping your head on a swivel. And if you feel like you are called to do something, you answer that call and you make it happen. And that philosophy has not failed me yet.
I think that's a great philosophy for anyone today, to really just put your head down, keep moving forward. I mean, me and Brian, I started this site 2015. We had great years. COVID hit, everything shut down, so it kind of hurt us. Brian came with a great, he stuck by me all these years and said, hey, let's do a podcast. I'm like, what? What do you mean? And here we are, 24 episodes in and taking off. And I think we have almost the same goals you have. We just want to, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. I do mortgages by day, but you know what? It's a little bit of entertainment. We're giving fans something that they normally don't get. We're getting people a platform they normally don't get on a platform. And I think, what we've built as well is we hope to have it withstand and continue to grow as well. So I think you have, that drive and that energy. And I've seen it, in your videos and stuff. You have the energy, and to have it every single night, as much as what is going on with the baseball, I can see that you are going to get to where you need to get to. And it may take this door to open up, but it's already been happening for you right now. And I think you're on the right path.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. And it's been a blast being on here and being able to help you guys accomplish your goals. Cause we're all stronger when we all work together. And I don't mean just the 3 of us sitting here, but everybody.
Yep. Real quick, what's your tour dates look like for Banana World Tour? How many are you doing? Are you involved in all of them or part-time, or how's that work?
Right now, I don't know. What I do know is I am on everything in February and March. So you will see me at all the dates, February and March, except for maybe, do we have one on March 31st? If we do, I'm not on that one because I can't make it to Arizona. But everything else, these first 2 months for sure. I know they told me I'm not going to be doing all of it. But then again, things can change. So I'm not sure. It's weird because I'm used to booking my calendar way out, and I
was
prefer
like that. You're
I get a lot of requests.
Yeah, good for you.
I'm staying patient, and we'll see. And when I know, I will make sure the world knows as well. But April, we'll see. But March and February, Banana Ball World Tour 2023. Here we go.
And one last thing on that. One last thing. Any chance Jesse Cole bought a banana looking like plane to bring everybody into when they travel?
Not yet, but I'm telling you,
it's coming.
Don't count that out. It's a couple of years, man. Don't count it out. There's been some weird conversations I've heard about things we're thinking about in the years ahead, and I would not. That would be the least thing to surprise me, you know.
So yeah, we look forward to hopefully catching up. Well, if we're in Tampa and you're still involved, we'd love to catch up with you then for sure, and just kind of hear how your year goes as well. So let's all stay in touch on that.
100%. And I'm in Orlando all the time. I'll reach out to you guys too, even if it's combat sports or whatever. A night out is a night out, and
right.
where I'm at is usually a good time. So,
believe it.
I'll let you guys know.
That's great. Well, Matt, thank you so much. The Young Professor, and episode 24. I just wanted to say real quick, we got these hats and other things available on the site store, so check that out. And the podcast is also brought to you by eZip Mortgage. So thank you for your time. We look forward to hearing from you down the road.
Brian, David, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you guys. Thank you for the show.